What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we've got the continuation of our series, how to build a website from absolute scratch. In this video, we are going to be going over how to access our VPS, how to set up the security, so that way you can make sure that it's secured for you and you don't have to worry about people getting into your VPS and messing with things. So we're gonna go over the security. We're gonna even, if we have time, we'll go over getting a few applications in there and getting things ready to go for our web server. So with that, there was one or two things, very brief, that I wanted to go over that I missed in the last video about the DigitalOcean page here. So that advanced metrics thing that we checked to add to our server, VPS, aka Droplet here in DigitalOcean, that allows us to look at every single second of what the bandwidth, CPU, and the disk is doing. So it looks a lot nicer like this. If you didn't have that checked, it would be like once every 5 minutes you'll get this random line or dot or something that it's a lot harder to look at. So that's really the only difference there. Also, if you wanted to rename your server, you could just touch the name of the server, click it, change the name, hit the check mark. That's all you got to do. So those are the things that I wanted to go over. Again, we're going to need our IPv4 address, so keep that handy. Now, if you are on Mac, you will need to, if there's anything different, there probably isn't going to be much different, but you will need to use terminal instead of command prompt for all of this. We're going to use command prompt on Windows. So if you are a Windows user, follow these next steps. If you're a Mac user, it's going to be like 2 steps, and then you're into the server, and all of the stuff is going to be the same because we are going to be going off of an Ubuntu operating system. And it doesn't matter if you're Windows or Mac, you're using an Ubuntu operating system when you log into that server. So everything will be uniform after that. So for Windows, go to the search menu, type in CMD. It's going to pull up command prompt. Open that up. And then if we move this over to the side a little bit, we are going to SSH space root at our IP address. So what we're doing here is we're going to say, hey, we want to SSH as the root user at where we want to SSH root user at. We are going to do that to this server, which is identified by this IPv4 address. So we're going to copy that, and then we are going to go back to our command prompt, and we are going to, on command prompts, paste is right click. So we are going to right click, and there is our IPv4 address. So now, once we are here, we are going to click enter, and then it's going to say, hey, we can't figure out the authenticity of the host here. And it's going to say, hey, we've got our SSH key that we found here, and we don't really know if that is good or not. That is the SSH key that you put into the server when you set it up initially, so you know you can trust it. You made it yourself. It's going to be blocked on my screen because that is how you can access somebody else's server or whoever's server. So I'm not gonna show that, but just know that that is there as well if it is blocked for you. So then it's going to say, are you sure you want to continue connecting? Yes or no. So in here, let's just type yes, and then it is going to add us to the list of known hosts. And then here we go. We are inside the server. Now we're going to get a bunch of different information in here that is going to show us our server. For example, we've got documentation on Ubuntu. You know it's an Ubuntu server. You can see, welcome to Ubuntu 24.04.1 LTS, long-term service. That is what we set up. There's some Ubuntu documentation, management documentation, support, which is available for pro users, and system information as of the time you log in. And you can also set this time clock to your own time zone too if you prefer, but it goes off of UTC, the regular, world time clock to start. You can always change that later, and I can show you if you guys are curious in the future. But we see how much our processor is being used. If we go and look, it says it's 0.08, which is lined up pretty much with what we had here. If I zoom this over to the side here, we can see that it was really kind of peaks around 7.5. It probably rounded up. So we are exactly what we have here in the CPU usage. We have used about a quarter of our 10 or 8 gigabytes of data for this droplet here. And the reason we use a quarter of it is because we need to have a few things on the server just to be able to log in, like the operating system and all that stuff to start up the system itself. So you do start with a little bit of usage, but again, it's going to be pretty hard to hit that if you're just doing some basic stuff. Memory usage, 44%. So that's not something that's listed here, but this is going to be your biggest, you're going to hit this memory usage issue more quicker probably than you're going to hit that, depending on what you're putting on there. If you're just using it to store stuff, yeah, you're going to hit this first, but you're probably going to run into your memory usage. So then we've got 99 processes going, our IPv4 address for outgoing, and our IPv4 address for our private version. So we can see that it's 64 and ends in 128, 64, 128. There you go. There's a bunch of different security updates that can be applied, and a system restart is required because this is very out of date now. So we need to update this server as well. Before going into updating the server, I just want to give you guys a brief understanding of why we were actually able to get into the server, and that is due to what we did in the first video when we created these public keys. I have multiple here. This is the one that's actually used for the server. These two right here. We created a public and a private key. This one is the public and this is the private. We put the public key onto DigitalOcean, and DigitalOcean, when we created the server, put this public key into the server. So when we log into the server, it's like, hey, do we have a matching private key? And there's my matching right here. This is my matching private key. So it's going to let us into the server. However, anybody who has this private key can get into the server right now. So in the future, after we go over updating the system, we are going to go over the firewall to additionally lock this down to make this even harder to get into. All right, so to update the server, this process that we're going to do is the exact same as if you were on Windows and you went into the settings and hit check for updates. Oh, we've got an update. Then let's update. That is the same thing we're doing right here on this Linux Ubuntu right now. So as you can see, we have 112 updates that can be applied immediately. You're not going to probably run into this in the future. This is, you just get the base install and now it's like, all right, we need to update all the stuff for the system. We also can see there is a system restart required. Oh, I also increased the size of the screen so that way it's a little bit easier to read if you're looking at this on a phone. It still might be kind of difficult to read, but hopefully this is a little bit better. Yeah, now you can see the IPv4 address, the outgoing IPv4 address, or the external memory usage here. So a little bit better to see now. So anyway, what we want to do to update this server is we need to type in sudo apt update. So what this is going to do is this is going to be the button you say, hey, check for updates. So we're going to enter and then we are going to check for updates. So all of this stuff in here is just checking for any additional updates that need to be done. So as we can see, oh great, I just got, hold on. Okay, I was muting my microphone for a second. It was still going on anyway. I got, what is it? Voice bombed by a siren in the background that might have came over the microphone. But anyway, we have a bunch of things that we are updating through DigitalOcean, Ubuntu, and here we go. I got voice bombed again by the siren. I don't know what's going on outside. There's a little bit of a storm going on right now. But anyway, we grabbed a little bit more, we checked it. Now it says instead of 112, we actually have 124 packages that can be upgraded. So always do this first before you actually upgrade the system. So we didn't actually upgrade the system, we just checked for updates here. So I don't know if I was going to say something else. I kind of got distracted by what was going on outside. Oh, I was going to explain what this actually means. So if you also press the up arrow key, you'll go back to the previous thing you typed in. So if I highlight this, Sudo means you are telling the operating system, hey, I'm going to run as administrator here. You don't need sudo when you're the root user because you're already the administrator. But let's say you're logged into a different account and you need to do something like this. You will need to sudo first because you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to run with administrator permissions instead. And that's what that means here is sudo. And then apt update is your check for update. So I just wanted to show that there. So instead of apt update, now we're going to type in apt upgrade. So apt upgrade is going to now install all of those new updates. So once we type that in, hit enter, and here we go. We're going to start installing a bunch of stuff. We see that after this operation, 189 megabytes of additional space will be used because we need to update all of these different packages that are outdated. So let's type in Y, not T, Y right here and hit enter. And here we go. All of it is installing. And you'll start seeing a loading bar, hopefully. There we go, a progress bar. And once this gets up to 100%, then we have the entire server installed. Or not installed, but the entire server is then updated. So as we're going through, we're updating. This is something you're going to want to do and check when you log into the server every so often to see if there's any new updates that need to come out for it. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of things here, but again, this is not going to be as crazy of the amount of stuff when you check it after this. It's just, your base install, you have to update all of the other packages. So we're almost done here. We're at 66, 67%. You'll get familiar with this progress bar. This is just basically your same thing as your loading bar, but on Ubuntu, command prompts, whatever you want to call it there. So, but we're almost done, 86, 87, and getting a few more things all up to date, and almost done. Anytime now. Yeah, I wonder if I can, a lot of this stuff I couldn't actually tell you what it actually is. It's a bunch of Ubuntu operating system stuff. But 95, we're almost done here. 96, 97. There we go. Are we done? We're not done until this thing actually shows back up with root at, there we go. See, we still had a little bit more. Whenever you do a process, it's not fully done until you see root at whatever, or root at YouTube. There we go. Now it's fully done. That popped in. That means, hey, this has been done. We also see hey, this is, we scanned a bunch of stuff. We're running a kernel version that is not expected kernel for 6.8.060 generic. Restarting the system to load the new kernel will not be handled automatically, so you should consider rebooting. Restarting devices, it's going to restart some devices that needed to be restarted from it. So now, since we have updated the system, we do need to get the new kernel. And the new kernel is basically the core of the server itself, and it is not updated. You have to actually restart the VPS for this new kernel to be installed. So in order to complete our install, which is why you have the system restart required as well, is you need to update that kernel, which needs the power to be off and then to be back on again. So what we're going to do here is we are going to type in reboot, and this is going to exit you out, and you'll be able to get back in about a minute or so. So let's hit reboot, and we see that it's we did reboot, and root at YouTube connection has been closed by the remote host, and then connection has been closed. While this is rebooting, we've got about 30 seconds or so, and then we can try and relog into it via SSH. But anyway, let's get back into the server. So if you press the up arrow, because we are now out of the Linux operating system, the next newest thing that we had was the last thing we put in on our Windows operating system, and that is the SSH root at the server. We are going to reconnect to the server. by hitting enter. And there we go. We are all updated. So if we see 0 updates can be applied immediately. We don't have the system restart in there. We've got all of our information back up here of what we have been using. And now we can start working on our security. All right, so these next steps are the most important parts of the video. We are going to go over the firewall, more specifically uncomplicated firewall. That's literally the name. It's UFW, uncomplicated firewall. It's installed by default on an Ubuntu system, and we are going to use it to lock down our server even more than what we already have, because right now our server does not have a firewall on it, and that means our server will accept any connections and let any connections go right through it. We don't want that. What if somebody gets any information to log into the server? Well, then they can log into the server and destroy a bunch of things in the server. By the way, we are still in the server. You can tell by this root at YouTube. That is how you can tell we are still in the server. I just typed in the command clear and hit enter, and that gives us a fresh sheet to work on. So we're still in the server, don't worry. But yes, the next thing we need to do is we need to go over the uncomplicated firewall and set up a few rules to when we enable the firewall and block all these connections, we're at least allowing ourselves to get back into the server without messing a bunch of things up and locking us out of the server, because we can lock ourselves out of the server if we don't do this right. So anyway, what we want to do is we want to type in the command who, WHO, hit enter. That is going to tell you who is accessing this server right now, which should be you on your home connection. It's going to display your home IP address. It's going to be blocked for you guys because that is my IP address, so I am not going to show you guys that on camera, but take that IP address and copy it. Copy that, and then we are going to type in UFW allow from. Now right click, because that is your IP address, and we need to right click to make sure that our IP address is in there. And then we're going to say to any port 22. Port 22 is SSH. So we are going to uncomplicated firewall allow from our IP address to any port 22, which is SSH. Then hit enter. It's going to say rules updated. So now that we have that there specifically, we can now access our server when we enable the firewall. Very, very important. If you did that wrong and you try to log back into the server once you enable the firewall, you won't be able to get back in, and you will have to log in through the recovery console and then disable your firewall, come back in, and then try to fix it. It's kind of a pain. The recovery console is not very good. So make sure to pay attention here and make sure you have your correct IP address. That is what you use to log into it. So anyway, we have that set. And the next thing we want to do is we want to create a web server. So we also want to allow the connections for our web server. And the connections that we use for our web server is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, and HTTPS, the secure version. And those ports are port 80 and port 443. So let's go and UFW allow from, or actually, I think it's just UFW allow 80/TCP. There we go. Yep. UFW allow 80/TCP. By the way, if you're not the root user, make sure to put a sudo in front of both these commands we just did. And now let's do 443. So UFW allow 443./TCP. Enter. All right. So you notice there's rules updated and then there's rules updated v6. What does that mean? Well, rules updated is IPv4, which most people use right now. But IPv6 has the longer, more confusing, challenging version of your IP address. And they're setting those rules for IPv6 as well. So that's why you got it, rules updated IPv4 and rules updated IPv6. So that's what that is there. All right, now that we have those, we can enable the firewall. So if you type in UFW enable, I didn't spell that right, hold on, UFW enable, there we go. Now we spelled it right. Command may disrupt existing SSH connections. Proceed with the operation. Yes, we made sure that we have our own system that can access the server again. So now we're going to type in UFW status. UFW status will tell you, hey, we have from port 22, we're going to allow from our IP address. And we're also going to allow port 80 TCP, port 443/TCP, and then the v6 versions of them. They're all going to be allowed, but we're going to block everything else because we just enabled our firewall. So with that, let's give this a try and try to relog into the server. So if you just type in exit, it is going to log you out. And if we type or if we touch the up arrow key, it's going to do the last thing we did on our Windows operating system, because we are now in the Windows operating system, which is SSH root at our server IP. And then hit enter. Let's see if you can connect. If you can't connect, well, you got to go into the recovery console, disable your firewall, come back in here and set the firewall up correctly. But we were successful. You can see all the information up here. We were able to get back into the server. So that is good. I'm glad you guys made it to this part. Hopefully you did. If not, then make sure to go onto your DigitalOcean, go to the Access tab, and hit Launch Recovery Console. When you launch your Recovery Console, you are going to be prompted with a login. This login is going to be roots. Hit enter. Login is going to be root at this point because you don't have any other users, and you probably want to log in as root, so that way you can disable the firewall. And then you're going to need to put in the root password. If you don't remember what the root password is, you can reset the root password right here. But this is where you do the recovery console. This is not the recovery console. This is the recovery console. So you want to do that. And one last thing, when I do bring this up, I'll bring this up real quick. So the password here, when you start typing stuff, that is not going to show up anything. It's just going to stay like that. So keep that in mind. Make sure you type your password correctly, because you're not going to have any sort of feedback to know that you're typing it correctly. And you're going to notice that with a few things when you're making your own server. That's how it hides your password for anything. But anyway, I just wanted to go over that. You'll have to go back into the recovery console if you didn't do that right, and you'll have to do UFW disable, and that will disable your firewall, so then you can relog in the regular way, which is a lot easier and better. You'll understand when you use the recovery console more why it kind of sucks. But anyway, let's get into the next part. So the last thing we want to do, by default, we want to deny incoming traffic to secure this server down. So we're going to do UFW default. If I spelled that right, I think I did. Deny incoming. So what that's going to do is that is going to default deny any incoming traffic to the server. And that's what we want to do by default to make sure that we are protecting any incoming connections to the server. So that's been set. So the next thing we want to do is we want to install fail to ban. That is going to stop brute force attacks from happening on our server. The reason you might be like, why haven't we gotten into the website stuff yet? That is coming right after this, but we have to make sure we get the important things down first, so that way our server is not going to have too many issues in the future. So anyway, we are going to type in apt, now that I clicked on the thing, install fail to ban --y. Hit enter on that, and now we're going to start installing fail to ban. And it is going to say after this operation, 250 some KB is going to be used, kilobytes. And there we go. We have roots at YouTube again, so that means this has been done. We have installed it. Now let's enable it. So sudo systemctl. You're going to be using systemctl a lot with Ubuntu. This is like your system command here, and this is an important thing. It's like Windows. You're kind of, well, I don't really know how to relate it to a Windows one, but yes, this is kind of your admin right here is, or your server, like systemctl. Enable fail to ban. So sudo systemctl enable fail to ban. Now we are synchronizing state of the fail to ban with system v service and in the install, and we are going to enable fail to ban. Now let's start it. Sudo systemctl start fail to ban. All right, we have now started fail to ban, so now we are currently being protected by brute force attacks, and that is good. We are going to quick do an exit just to double check. So we exit that. Let's press the up arrow key and let's hit enter. Can we still access the server? Yes, we can. We've done this correctly. We have now secured down our server a lot better than what it was before. And now we are ready to go into actually getting the stuff for a web server and getting our web server running. That will be in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope this helped you guys. Make sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe. Let me know any questions, comments you may have. I'm always happy to help. Without further ado, I will see you in the next video.
Oh, oh, 7-9, from the ring to the